Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing the Ludwig Jazz Fest. This model is from 1965. Before we get started, I would just love to ask if you guys could please like and subscribe, and maybe let anybody else who's a fan of drums and drum history and what makes up a drum, let them know please, so that they can like and subscribe as well. I'd greatly appreciate that. It'd be a huge help. All right, that being said, let's get started. All right, so this drum, once again, is from 1965. As you can see, this is what is known as the Black Marine Pearl. This drum was actually, when I got it through Reverb. It was painted, it was spray painted black. I'll add some pictures so that you guys can see what it actually looked like. It was a little bit of a gamble. I got it as a good deal. That's one of the things I refuse to pay top dollar or anything close to that for any drum. So I kind of scour the internet, whether it's Craigslist, shopgoodwill.com, Music Go Round, Guitar Center, Sweetwater's used section, and obviously Craigslist, Reverb, eBay. And once I find something, you know, I'll track it and see how it's doing, whether or not people are interested. When I saw this drum, it was painted or spray painted black. You could tell in the pictures that the person was showing that it had chips in the black. And you know, I've worked on a lot of cars and some motorcycles. I could tell that, you know, it'd been obviously spray painted. So I took a chance on it. I bought it. I got a great deal on it, and I started stripping off all the paint. As I said earlier, I will be putting some of those pictures on here for you so you guys can see what it looked like. The Jazz Fest, as I mentioned in an earlier video, was first released in 1956 under the Barrett Deems, or known as the Barrett Deems model. At one point, he was considered like the fastest drummer in the world. He did a lot of big bands, and then as those died down, he moved into obviously more like a traditional jazz. In 1960, they renamed the Barrett Deems to the Jazz Fest. The original dimensions were 5.5 by 14, and it did not have baseball bat arm or muffler as we're used to. In 1960, they reduced the height from 5.5 to 5, and they installed the baseball bat muffler. This one has chrome over steel hoops. And obviously, as I mentioned in an earlier video, if you guys have had the chance to check them out, always the easiest way to check is put a magnet on it. If it's chrome over steel, it will definitely stick. If it's chrome over brass, it'll slide right off. So that's the easiest and best way to tell whether or not a hoop is chrome over brass or chrome over steel. All right, now some of the things that tell you that everything is correct on these drums, okay? I'll show you what's correct and what is not. First off, a lot of the, let me move this a little closer to you guys. First off, a lot of the tension rods are not original. That's super common, you know. It's, you know, if you're one of those people that like to go on eBay and hunt out the vintage ones, you know, by all means, I just use whatever they come with. Also, like I said, this model is from 1965. A couple of things that tell me that it is a correct era drum is obviously the number on the badge. Also, the baseball bat is correct. And the muffler on the baseball bat should be white. I'll show you guys that in a little bit. That's a little felt on top of the muffler. So that's correct for 1965. Also, what we're looking at over here is you have your P83, Ludwig P83. Okay, that's also correct for the era. Those were used on all on drums up until 1969. They started using them around 1958, 1959. If your drum falls in the era that mine does, once again, that's one of the ways that you'll know it's correct. When you're looking at Ludwig hoops, this is what you're looking for, guys. For this era, it's going to be a 3-flanged hoop, right? With, okay, so you see that? And then another important detail to tell whether or not that's what you're looking at is this. Just kind of memorize the shape of that, okay? If it looks square, you know you're looking at a Ludwig hoop. Every manufacturer did theirs a little bit different. So that's just one way you can obviously tell whether or not it is a Ludwig hoop or not. On the bottom, the gates for on the bottom, the gates for the P83, the strainer, and the butt plate. This is the incorrect hoop. It should be round. Like the edges will literally be rounded over, okay? So that's another way you can tell whether or not you're using a correct 50s or 60s hoop. I'm pretty sure, I know they changed it at some point. I don't know when they changed it over to a square gate, but to be error correct, it would have to be rounded. And as you can see, let me flip this over so you can get a better look. All right, you can tell obviously that it's not the correct error. You do have the bow tie lugs, okay? This is a 5x14. If you end up with the really, really early Jazz Fest, you know, you can't come across the ones that were 5.5x14, which is pretty cool to have. But traditionally they were 5x14. The Ringo Jazz Fest, that's worth a fortune. They're a little bit over 5 and a little bit under 5.5. You can also tell whether or not you have the Ringo snare, which obviously I don't. You'll have 3 things lined up in consecutive panels, okay? You're gonna have your throw off. You're gonna have your badge. You're gonna have the baseball muffler. Those 3 will be in 3 consecutive panels. If you do end up with one, if you do have one of those Jazz Fest, you just cashed in, man. You won one of the lotteries, okay? One of the holy grails that people always talk about when it comes to drums. But 99% of them obviously don't have that. Mine doesn't have that. Mine is, you know, the traditional or the known setup, the more common setup. These were also painted white on the inside. Okay, they were painted white. As you can see right there, I do have the white muffler. That denotes that it's after 1964. Okay, after 1964, they went from the red muffler to, the red felt to the white felt. They're also painted white on the inside. It's just a generic little off-white that they used. That, I believe, got started at about like 1961. So I could be wrong. If I am, please check me. But they started painting the inside of the shells white. That went on till about like 1968 when they switched over and they left them natural on the inside. Ludwig drums of this era will also have a date stamp on the inside. This one's a little, actually very blurry, and it's white. When I got this, it had a lot of, when I got this drum, it had a lot of overspray on the inside. All right, guys, let me give you a quick little show and tell of what I used to remove the paint, the overspray from the inside of the drum, along with all the lacquer that was on top of the drum. So I used Goo Gone. That's what I ended up using. I took that and I sprayed a little bit on the interior, and I was super lucky. It did not remove the paint. It just removed the overspray. So as soon as I sprayed it with the Goo Gone and wiped it off, I sprayed it with water just to neutralize any of the effect of the chemical. I don't want it to continue to eat whatever paint was left that I wanted to keep, in my case, which was the white interior. Then I went to Ace Hardware and I asked for the most gentle stripper they had, because I've used a bunch of other ones that, I mean, will take your skin off if you're not careful. I had already removed some paint off of another drum, and to be honest with you, I kind of ended up ruining that wrap. It was still good, but like I just couldn't get it to polish because of how much of the plastic that stripper used up. So I ended up using this right here, guys. This was awesome. I used that. I would put a little bit on, like the size of a panel on the snare drum, and then obviously I removed everything off the snare drum, and then I just used a spatula and I just scraped down. Actually, I got the idea from the Vintage Drum Garage. I'm a big fan of that site, so if you guys haven't checked it out, please check it out. And then, but I use this. This is what I use. And once again, I would put this on there, and then the minute that I saw that it was starting to like bubble the paint, I used my spatula to scrape it. And then as soon as that panel was done, I sprayed it with water, which I think is the most important thing you need to do to neutralize the effect of whatever agent you're using to remove the paint. When you're looking at these drums, if you want them to be 100% original, obviously you're going to pay a lot more. A couple things off on my drums. Actually, most of my collection of snares and drum sets, there's always something, one or a few things that keeps them from being completely original, which I'm fine with, because in the end, they're still a tool, right? In the end, they're still a tool. I still use them. I still beat them up. I do rim shots on them. They'll fall out of the car in their bags. It's like normal stuff that happens to all of us. So if, a rim gets dented, and, I'm fine with it as long as it's not so bad that, it throws the drum out around or you can't tune it. Let me tell you about the butt plate. When you're looking at these butt plates, okay? If you can see the Ludwig symbol on the P32 there, the butt plate, you can see that the little legs on the L and the G, they do not touch. That's how you know it's error correct as well for the 60s. And all your screws are going to be flathead, okay? The screws on the inside now, by this time, Ludwig had moved away from the domed flathead screws, and they moved over to a hex head bolt, 1/4-inch head. All right, guys, when I do a lot of my work, I make sure that I'm not gonna hurt the lugs in any way. These things are old, they're brittle. The material wasn't the best a lot of the time. So if you're gonna remove them, please be careful, because you will break them. It happens all the time, man. If you're gonna start doing this type of work, I would recommend that you buy yourself a tap and die set to retap them or to chase threads. If you don't really know what chasing threads means, that means you just take the threading tool and you run it into the female end of whatever thread you're using to clean the threads or to thread them correctly if it's been cross-threaded. Another thing that I use, like I said, I bought these, they're Milwaukee brand at Home Depot. They come in a set of 3, and I insert this into my electric screwdriver or my electric drill, and I set it to the weakest point, which is 1, and I remove them. When I'm putting them back on, I use a screwdriver that's designed for hex head screws. I thread them in by hand as much as I can, and then I tighten them with the bolt, or with that hex head screwdriver. Sorry about that. So those are the things that I do when I'm redoing these drums in order to not break them, not damage the threads. Once you've removed all the paint that you want removed, I spritz it with water as I go just to make sure the chemical reaction stops. Then I sanded it down. Okay, I started with 800 grit sandpaper, and I went all the way down to 1500 grit sandpaper. That allowed me to like smooth out the wrap, because even though I'm not using like a blade, and please guys, try not to use a razor blade. It's just, you end up cutting into these wraps whether you're delicate or not. So like I said, I use a spatula. So as I was saying, I sanded it down to 1500, and then I use the Meguiar's cutting compound, which I'm sure you guys have all seen. And then I cut it. I put it on there, I rubbed it on there, and once it's rubbed on there, you remove it. I did that about 2 or 3 times, and that removed any other little imperfections. And then I used just Meguiar's car wax. Did that a couple times, and I was very, very happy with the way it came out after being under paint. All right, let's see. This shell is made from mahogany, poplar mahogany. And just for a quick recap, that's our P83 right there. And like I said, if your shell is from 1968 or earlier, it's gonna have that one on there. All right, if it doesn't, it's incorrect. You should have chrome over steel hoops, chrome hardware, right, making up your lugs. In this case, the baseball bat muffler. At about 1968, they also switched over to the round knob, which is smaller. I think it's about like 3/4 of an inch is the size of the knob. Like I said before, if you look at the gates, they're not rounded off, so it's not factory correct. All right. If you guys dig the information that I'm putting out, please press the like and subscribe, and let your other drummer friends know about this page. It would really help a lot. There's a lot of work that goes into putting these together, and I really want to share my knowledge with you guys. And you guys have a great day. And once again, thanks for hanging out with Suavecito Vintage Drums. And, till the next.